Hi Patreon. So in this patron-only video, I'm going to be sharing with you the full video of my recent interview with Regina Mustafa, the founder of the Community Interfaith Dialogue on Islam here in Rochester, Minnesota. She isn't just the founder of CEDI, she is also on the board of a local mosque here. She recently ran for mayor in Rochester, and she's been a community activist of all kinds. I did want to let you know that we had some technical difficulties during the call. I was not able to record my own audio, so you will not hear my voice throughout the rest of this video, which could be worse. What that means is I will be putting the questions around the video of Ms. Mustafa so that you know what she's responding to, and just don't get too frustrated with the little moments of silence. That's when I'm talking. You just can't hear me. So the first question that I asked her was about an act of vandalism on June 23rd, 2018. A local mosque woke up to find bacon scattered around outside in what is assumed to be an act of vandalism. I asked her how they found it, what it was like, how she felt about it, how the Muslim community in Rochester at large responded, how they felt, and let's listen to what she had to say.
So I'm on the board of the Masjid Abu Bakr al-Sadiq, a mosque downtown located at 17 North Broadway. And last year or so, I was on my way downtown and I got a text message from another board member that bacon was discovered kind of scattered placed throughout the parking lot, which is adjacent to the building, and also a stack of bacon piled right in front of the door. So initially, you go through the whole gauntlet of emotions when you know that your place of worship has been desecrated. Shock, anger, disgust, pity for the people that did it, that they felt that it was a better idea to, we don't eat pork, but somebody could have eaten it, so they would rather have wasted food, while there's hungry people in our community, rather than maybe take the money that it costs to buy that bacon and actually go and feed somebody, or just give the bacon and donate to somebody for somebody else to eat it, I've done my own little kind of brief documentary looking into the whole phenomenon of using pig and particularly, animal parts and particularly pigs to kind of terrorize and desecrate mosques and synagogues in the United States. And it's a pretty well-known tactic. It's a fairly common tactic when one wants to desecrate a mosque, an Islamic center, or a synagogue, to use pig parts. It's even happened in England, pig heads, pig feet. So I was like, okay, now it's happening here too. So I wasn't completely shocked, but it was, I've been living in Rochester since 2007, and it was, to my knowledge, that was the first time that any kind of vandalism or desecration has ever taken place to the mosque. And then in terms of the reaction from the Muslim community, there's probably still today a good many people in the Muslim community probably were not aware that it even occurred. I mean, it did get news coverage and such, but I would say the Muslim community at the mosque there downtown, and I think in general, tends to be kind of torn on the best way to handle such a situation. Do we draw attention to it, or do we not? If we, issue a statement of, and then if we call on our neighbors to stand with us and stuff like that, does it call more attention? Does it beckon other people to carry out similar acts? So I'm on the side that no, the public needs to be aware of this. This should be condemned by all our neighbors. And so we did quickly organize a kind of interfaith solidarity, kind of morning prayer, moment of silence for the following morning.
Mm-hmm. That actually leads perfectly into another question I have about recent gatherings.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right. Hmm. So whoever, it's basically she has the right to come and speak. As much as I take issue with what she has to say and believe that actually the things that she says, from based on what I've read on her tweets and um, her other actions, that they can be quite dangerous and really lead to increased danger and against the Muslim community and hostility towards the Muslim community. But she does have a right to speak. It was on private property. The group that invited her, and they have a right to invite whatever speaker they want. And I felt that if we show up, because supposedly it was held at a mosque, and supposedly it was held at a church in Zumbro Falls. It particularly doesn't look good if you have Muslims and non-Muslims really holding protest signs outside of a church. And I think essentially that's exactly what she wants. She wants the people to come there. She wants people to get angry and shout, because I think she will then use that to kind of justify her rationale that Muslims are irrational and that we're prone to anger and things like that. I think, if any Muslim or any member of the community wanted to go and hear what she had to say, fine, but go there to listen, not to interrupt, not to disrupt the presentation. And if there's Q&A time, then ask your question. And then that's it. Be quiet and let her answer your question and then leave. So it's really hard to control that, though, if you kind of put out there like, hey, go, but, behave yourselves. I would rather just not go, because, look, I already know what she's going to say. You could find it online. It's not going to be any different. She is blatantly not only anti-Islam, but she's also anti-Muslim as well. She paints Muslims as completely monolithic, that were prone to just kill people who are not Muslim. So when these events, and this is not the first time that an anti-Muslim speaker has come to Rochester or Southeast Minnesota, so I tend to turn a negative situation and turn it into a positive. So don't go there, stay at home. But if you want to do something positive, why don't you sit down with our community members, people from all walks of life, and let's discuss actually what Islamophobia is, how it perpetuates not only on the right, but also on the left. And what can we do going forward? How can we be more proactive, especially as the 2020 elections come closer? Mhm. So the mission of CIDI is really to build understanding through a dialogue, advocacy, and community engagement. And it was formed in August of 2014. And I formed it around the time that's when ISIS, the extremist group ISIS, really started just to get so much media attention for their atrocities. And initially, when I first heard about ISIS, I thought, people are going to get, right, that this is really a violent reaction to political circumstances. People are not going to really think that the unbelievably awful things that they're doing is attached to any religion. But then I was hearing from my neighbors, and then you see the media coverage. People are actually questioning, like, does Islam really teach us? And I was also hearing, well, okay, where do I go to get reliable information about Islam? And I felt that the Rochester Muslim community lacked a leadership. It lacked presence to really offer reliable information on Islam. And I felt that we were not doing enough proactive engagement with our non-Muslim neighbors. So that's why I formed City. Yeah. Right. Right. Mm-hmm. 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 Right. So CARE has CARE, the Council of American Islamic Relations, has a national chapter, and then also it has some state chapters. And so in 2018, I did some brief contract work with CARE. Muslim organizations in Minnesota, we tend to know each other a lot, even if you don't work with them. You really tend to collaborate a lot. You have the same goals, the same mission. You're trying to benefit the Muslim community. You're trying to reach. So everybody kind of knows everybody. Um, so yeah, actually, I've been trying to reach out to Representative Hagedorn since he began his campaign in 2017, because even during his campaign in 2017, there was a couple of articles in the Rochester Post Bulletin where he talks about Islamic extremists, and he even coined the term Islamic supremacy, which I don't know where the heck he got that from. Yeah. So when people who are running for office and elected officials, when they say things like that, look, I'm not out to change people's opinions about Islam. I just don't want you fearing Islam so much they come into my mosque and start shooting up the place, right? I understand that people don't like Islam. That I'm not out. That's impossible. It's none of my business to discover what everybody thinks about Islam. But when you have somebody running for office or an elected official, then I'm definitely more concerned. So I reached out to him and very respectfully asked him, can we have a conversation? Because I have some concerns about some of the things you've said about my religion. And it was complete radio silence. And that went on. And then when he did get elected, I reached out to him again through Twitter, Facebook Messenger, email, phone calls to his office, again, to congratulate him and to say, okay, now that you're elected, I still have these concerns. I would really love to sit down with you and have a discussion about these concerns, and also how do we create more of an open relationship, an open dialogue between our congressional representative and thousands of your constituents who identify as Muslim. So again, I got absolutely no response at all. So then I began a petition on change.org, where I got over 400 signatures from people from all walks of life in CD1 who supported me wanting to have a meeting with him. And again, I sent it to him via mail, email, everything, and I got no response. So when I learned about the Rochester office opening, I called. And again, I wanted to meet with Mr. Hagedorn, but the regional director said, well, okay, I'll meet with you. And I said, well, okay, at least this would be a first step. So it was her suggestion that I meet with staff. And so that meeting was supposed to be on June 15th. And so the day before, she calls me and she said that they couldn't meet with me. So I said, well, can we arrange another time that we can meet? And she said, no. And I said, well, can I just send that right now? I said, well, when can I call back when your schedule's more open? And she says, look, we don't want to meet with you. And I asked why. And she said, because of your affiliation with CARE. And I said, what affiliation would that be? She said, you received an award from them, which I did in December of 2016. And so I knew where she was going. It's been a far-right conspiracy theory, probably since the inception of CARE, that it's funded by terrorism. So whenever there's an organization by Muslims that is out to, that stands for advocacy of Muslims, for civil rights of Muslims, for clarifying who we are, it's usually, the far right usually debunks it by tying it to terrorism. as they do with Muslim individuals of any prominence. It's the same thing. So I knew where she was going with that. And I said, well, look, that's ridiculous, but I'm not meeting, with you on behalf of CARE. I'm meeting as a constituent. And no. So it really does create a hostile environment that when your elected official is not even their staff are willing to sit down and meet with you, that means there's a complete disconnect between your concerns and your elected officials. And so that manifests. And again, it just creates it creates more and more opportunities for acts of discrimination, microaggressions, macroaggressions against the Muslim community, which can lead to increased likelihood of mental health issues, violence, blatant discrimination. I mean, just everything. You might call it one little thing, but somebody with a congressional seat, that stance really has the potential to really affect the minds of thousands of people. Right. Right. Why should my neighbor bother to engage with me when our elected official doesn't even see the benefit of it? Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. Well, it kind of goes back to what I said earlier about how even Islamophobia can be manifested from the left as well. And from the left, you may not find, acts of violence and people, wanting to spray paint your mosque or throw bacon at it. But you will still find lots of misconceptions from the left about, let's say, Sharia law, or really how are women treated in Islam. I tend to get pity from people on the left, let's say during Ramadan, and they're great friends. They want Muslims here, and they think Ramadan is neat or nice, but they're just so sorry for me that I have to go without food and water all day. Or they kind of have this mindset that we accept that you're Muslim, but the less I actually see evidence of you being Muslim, the more comfortable I will be. So it's like eventually, they'll take off their headscarves, I often find it really amusing why people are so obsessed with how women are dressed, either what they're wearing or what they're not wearing. It's really quite an example of how patriarchy and male chauvinism, it just manifests throughout all aspects of society globally. But anyway, that could be a different topic of discussion. Um, Oh, people are just completely obsessed with what a woman doesn't do, how she dresses, how she doesn't dress. And Islamophobia is so tied into racism and sexism. It's very hard to pull them apart. They're so intertwined. So how allies can be true allies is to listen to what the members of the Muslim community feel is best in certain actions. Listen to their leadership. When start having those difficult conversations. Everybody's got that brother-in-law or the crazy uncle who says just the most derogatory things, at Thanksgiving. And we usually just ignore it. We don't agree with it, but we ignore it because we don't want to take on any of that discomfort. Everybody can have a tough conversation with somebody in their circle and start to make that change. So when you hear something derogatory about Muslims or something that paints Muslims as monolithic, just call that to attention and be like, do you know a Muslim personally? So where are you getting this information about Muslims? I think starting there. Um, 6 out of 10 6 out of 10 Americans admit that they don't know a Muslim personally. And data also shows that I think Americans only 27% of Americans only have a favorable view of Islam. Americans tend to have, and the West in general tends to have very strong opinions about Islam and Muslims, but at the same time, they know very little about it. But the data also shows that positive opinions about Islam and Muslims rise when we do know Muslims personally. So I would say, to anyone who has some misconceptions about Islam or thinks they know what Islam is and that tends to be negative, also ask yourself, do I know a practicing Muslim personally? Not somebody just that occasionally passes you by at the workplace, but personally, somebody you talk to on a relative basis. Does that person match how the media portrays Islam and Muslims? Most likely it will not be. So why is that? There's a disparity here. So I encourage people to first recognize there is that disparity and then seek further knowledge about what's going on there. If you recognize the disparity, it's your responsibility to seek more knowledge about it. So